The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are talking about Phantasm 4, Oblivion from 1998. John, as Don Coscarelli said, as the Roman numerals get higher, the budgets get lower. And that's where we are with this film.
They had no money for this. It's wild.
Yeah.
Oftentimes for sequels, budgets go up, but as we'll find out repeatedly, when the thing gets kicked to basically straight to video, those budgets go way down. This one plummeted. They had no money.
Yeah. Phantasm 2, as we talked about, had a $3 million budget. Part 3 had 2.5, even though it somehow looked kind of cheaper than that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This one, by all accounts, was $650,000, which is just... That's just tough. Those are some bad breaks, you know. I think because he couldn't convince the studio to go theatrical again after part 3 was straight to DVD, or straight to VHS at that time.
I think there was that. I think there was. We can get into Roger Avery's interest into it, but I think with that kind of stalling, people were like, "Well, why would we want to put more money into this? I don't get it."
Yeah,
but it also, I think it just speaks to like the group of people. Like they got the band back together again to do this. And it's not like it answers everything. It's not like it wraps everything up. Mm-hmm. But that these people are still dedicated to wanting to be a part of this. That they'll work even harder in front and behind the camera, both.
Yeah, that absolutely endears me to this movie even more so. Where they're just like, oh man, we have like what? Quick math in my head, 1/8, maybe 1/6 of the budget of part 2, but we still want to do it. Damn it.
Yeah.
I like that spirit, and that'll never be lost on me for these films.
Mm-hmm. It's also helpful that they had, or Don Coscarelli had, a whole bunch of the old footage and props still around that they could make use of.
The first cut of part 1 was approximately 3 hours long, and he mercifully cut it down by half or so, but he had so much extra footage that he went into the script just being like, I have all this stuff that I could just be like, well, 10 to 20% of the movie's already been shot if I can position this around flashbacks. And I remember going into this one just thinking like, oh, part 4 is the flashback movie. Mm-hmm. And I had misremembered it. I think like I gave it more shit in my head than I should have. But the flashbacks in this are like predominantly like unseen footage.
Yeah.
I misremembered.
Yeah. It's wild because it's hard to tell what they're even flashing back to because these are things that didn't happen necessarily, because if we're just the movie is what we see on the screen.
Sure.
So are they alternate dimensions? Are they just more parts of his mind? It's odd. It's a little bit, sometimes you can kind of, it feels like it is sort of jammed in there, kind of Ed Wood style. Like, well, we have access to this footage. Let's do it. And no offense to the production of Phantasm 4, but
sure,
there are other times where it really adds something to it, and it makes it this odd. And I hate sounding this pretentious, but this odd sort of like Alan Renee kind of thing about like memory, and because this movie really goes back to being as mysterious as the first one was, or that same kind of track, and is a lot more sort of open and surreal, where the second 2 and 3 were pretty straightforward. I mean, there were surreal elements to them as in nothing made sense, but this one's challenging, I guess I'll put that, but not, and I don't mean that in the way like you would describe a small dog as challenging. Or an unruly child. Like it's
the small dog of the franchise.
Yeah, I've watched this a couple of times. I'm just like, I could not tell you what happened, but it's also like, I feel like something did happen. You know what I mean? There's interpretations to be made of it. I don't feel like it was just a mix of stuff and they went, here you go. I feel there was intention behind it.
And with this kind of thing, it's always, is it more than the sum of its parts? Like, do I get a kind of vibe out of it? Do I get a feeling out of it that will carry me through even when it's a little herky-jerky? And I think it's successful at that.
Yeah, and as since that was something that I loved so much about the first one, seeing a return to it made me extremely happy.
Yeah. Let's get the Avery story out of the way because I find it so fascinating as like a what could have been.
Yeah.
Roger Avery was the co-writer of Pulp Fiction. And in 94, he won the Oscar for Best Screenplay with Quentin. And when asked what he wanted to do next, he could have said anything. And he said, I want to make a sequel to Phantasm, which makes my heart grow 2 sizes bigger. You know,
that rules.
The world is his oyster. And he says, I want to make a Phantasm film. So without going beat by beat through a movie that doesn't exist, it was essentially a post-apocalyptic tale where the tall man had unleashed a virus on the United States, and there was the dead zone in which he lived in, and he was headquartered in Salt Lake City over the Mormon mausoleums. I guess there's a whole bunch of dead people there. And evidently, Mike was lost somewhere in the dead zone. Reggie Bannister was going to take the battle CUDA into the dead zone with a monkey sidekick, which is what I was the most excited about, frankly. Yeah. And he was going to meet up with Bruce Campbell, who is going to detonate a giant weapon in the tall man's universe. Now, all that sounds fantastic.
Wasn't Bruce Campbell supposed to be like a merc or something, like leading a commando squad? Or
Commando squad with a bunch of people. Like I think they even called him S Squad in response to Suicide Squad, you know, the comics and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Reggie and Bruce teamed up with a monkey sidekick and the battle CUDA. Like, I mean, that could have been everything. That was a $10 million script when they turned it in. And the Weinsteins just said no. And I love that Roger Avery was actually a little bit miffed because he was just like, man, I just won you an Oscar. Like, why can't I do what I want to do? And he got turned down for Phantasm Part 4. Yeah,
it got stalled in development hell. And so much so that, and Don Coscarelli really liked the script. There is in Phantasm Exhumed, there's a quote from an unnamed actor, but there's like 3 actors in this movie. So
yeah,
you know, you've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting it right. But they said, I couldn't understand why this writer, who apparently was such a big Phantasm fan, would create something so very non-Phantasm. That didn't make any sense to me. All of a sudden it was about these commandos, but he's Roger Avery. So what are you going to do? But as just, you know, a casual viewer, like that Phantasm is much more like 2 and 3 to me. Like that's an extension of that Phantasm. And while I would have loved to see it, like I said, I'm glad they kind of went back to this, but they also did this and left it open so that could still happen. Now, granted, you know, people die and come back all the time in these things. Like it's very loose with that kind of stuff, but still they kind of had that in mind because just in case, and we're still waiting. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it was to be called at one point Phantasm 1999. Another time it was called Phantasm Ends. Literally after they couldn't get the funding for that, they just called it Oblivion because of the cool like Roman numeral.
Which is hilarious because they did the same thing in that Elder Scrolls game, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, where it starts out the same 4. So when I saw it in this, I was like, oh, that's funny. Wait a minute, this came first. That's ridiculous.
Right. After they spent 2 years trying to develop that script, they finally got the no and then just said, well, I got to get money somehow. I got to figure this out. So they ended up getting $650,000. He wrote a script around existing footage and just said, like I said before, I've got 15% of the movie shot already. And that's some ingenuity. I'm pretty all right with that. Hey, Michael Baldwin was like, if I'm going to come back, I'm not just going to be Mike again. I want to be a producer on this. And I love that Coscarelli was just like, yeah, but I'm not going to pay you a producer fee, dude. Like, you have to be just your actor and producer. And he agreed just so he could learn. And evidently, he quickly learned how hard it is to produce a low budget film.
Everyone eats out of the same bowl. Yeah.
Yes.
It's rough. Like at one point, if you're an actor and crew on a movie, you get a call sheet and that tells you where you need to be and what time you need to be there. Not everyone needs to be there at the same time. Certainly, if they need just an actor for a certain scene later in the day, he or she might be called in later in the day, et cetera, et cetera. His call sheet just said every day, all the time. That's basically it.
16, 18 hours.
Yeah. If he's not acting, he's got to be doing something else, which is wild. If you think about these, I'm a huge fan of ridiculous vanity projects where someone writes, directs and whatever. And there's so much work that goes into that. Even just, but here, even just acting and producing, you're required to do a lot.
Yeah.
And I just think that's fascinating to put yourself in that position after 3 movies to be like, I want to be miserable.
Gosh, did you just make me put a Michael Baldwin into the Getaven camp Now it's a vanity project.
Man, I don't know. For those of you that don't know, Get Even is a fantastic movie. It's supposed to be Get Even, but it's one word. Highly recommend. Not horror, but horribly entertaining. I'll say
it's
that.
So good. It's so good.
But it is like he did want more for Michael this time around, simply because in part 3, Michael is such a victim. Such as like, let's go get him. He's in danger. He's the Super Mario princess.
Right.
He's like, I want to be around. I want to start doing stuff. And while they kind of separate out the two leads, him and Reggie, and he still does things. He still is active in his story this time around.
And they're a part a lot of this film.
Yeah.
Reggie, like there's the Reggie movie and there's the Mike movie, which we'll get into. And I'm divided on how I feel about that because I love seeing those guys together. And it's a little less effective with them just like, screwing around by themselves. The film opens, the first shot is basically, a foggy graveyard and then the tall man walking slowly through a mausoleum with a couple of like floating balls behind him. As I've admired in this franchise beforehand, how their restraint is, this time it's just out of the gate. Tall man, silver balls, bam. Once again, we got our two most iconic images right up front. We get a montage of the previous films, just like the last ones. Again, never seeing James LaGrosse. We're taking him out of this.
And also not even seeing Tim, the young boy from part 3. There is he is taken at the end of part 3, much like everyone is at the end of every movie. Well, I guess really just Mike at the start, 1 and 2. Tim is taken in 3. They did shoot a scene of lurkers eating Tim, but they didn't do that. Just like Liz. Tim's just gone, and much like Liz, no one cares. It doesn't really matter. Reggie is apparently used to this now, does not react one way or the other.
Reggie is completely in the mode of I'm the hero now because this film is so much less about Mike and more about Reggie at this point. And he opens the film with this amazing narration that I love so much right here.
My name is Reggie. I was an ice cream vendor by trade. Now, I'm a soldier.
As he narrates that in that goofy line that I love so much, you still get that impression of the ideas of Phantasm are so uniquely their own.
Yes.
Just like everything that he just talked about right there, you can't find in another movie necessarily. Like it's so itself that I love.
Or if it's a cliched thing, like one man fights against a supernatural army. No one does it like Reggie. For good or bad. No one does it like Reggie.
We do see the end of part 3 again, where the tall man approaches Reggie and he's surrounded by all the silver balls and he's up against the wall and everything. And the tall man does tell him,
the final game, I'll begin.
We get a bunch of just back and forth right now of Reggie driving alone and Mike driving alone. But they do show that stuff that we've talked about in previous films where it's all the abandoned towns. They show so well, like that atmosphere of like rural Oregon is being completely decimated by the tall man.
Right. The small rolling apocalypse. Yeah.
Well, I feel like in these movies that they're always either like in pursuit of the tall man or they're running away from the tall man. And sometimes at the same time, it seems like.
Yes.
So I don't know how that works in physics, but it just is.
Well, that is the running away to go hide in a mausoleum. The last place you'd expect to find him. So like, cause Reggie just is like, I want to get out of here because Jody confronts Reggie. Jody shows back up in from ball form.
Yeah.
And I like because Reggie's had it with him. Reggie's just like, go to hell, man.
Yep.
Like, I'm tired of this nonsense. I just want to get out of here. He tells him to go southwest, and he'll know when he gets it, when he gets there. And Mike is just driving south.
Yeah. We get shots too that I think were originally shot from Phantasm 1 where the tall man is just driving all over the road just like Brad Wesley from Roadhouse.
Yes.
I need to see the two of them together doing that. The tall man runs down a dog, which they luckily don't show. And then Mike sees a faceless man in the back in like his rearview mirror, which like I really thought that was an effective like low budget scare.
Yeah.
Like it's something about the makeup, or not even a makeup, but like whatever they had over the guy's face totally works.
That one is a good sign that this one is more interested in being eerie than just sort of whatever sort of like bombastic horror fantasy the other ones were. Mike is recounting, like writing a letter to Reggie in his mind, basically, like just recounting what's happening, almost like a Paul Schrader style journaling.
Right.
And yeah, he remembers the first day, the last perfect day before the tall man came to town. And it's some unused footage from part one. You can tell it's right after the scene of Jody riding away on a bike. Mm-hmm. But Reggie pulls up, drives by in his ice cream truck. Mike hops on the back, steals some ice cream and runs away. But then, then the tall man shows up. They drive past him in the CUDA, Mike and Jody. And then, the tall man runs over a dog, and you just hear the sound. The car doesn't react. It's a close-up on the tall man's face, the side view of the tall man's face. You just hear the sound. Tall man just does not even react at all. It's not like he gets glee from it or whatever. It's just nothing matters to him. This life and death, whatever. Yeah.
Reggie's fixing a tire, and I think this is where the Jody ball floats up. Then it just cuts to, I know it's early to say this, but I think it's my favorite shot in the film, which is just a shot of the sun rising. Jody's playing electric guitar, and Mike and Reggie are just hanging out on the hood of the car with them, drinking Dos Equis. And it just made me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, it's just fan service, but I got a kick out of it because, Reggie's yelling at Jody because he doesn't want anything to do with Jody anymore because Jody is, what the hell? You're a ball. You're just giving me these Sphinx riddles. I don't want anything to do with you. Get away from me. It was like, I'd like things to be different, but it's not. This is what it is. And, it'd be cool if things were better. And then like Reggie just has some sort of Proustian reverie about the taste of Dos Equis and them just hanging out and chilling.
Like, is that the future after they defeat the tall man? Is that what should the present be like if the tall man never entered their lives? Like, I like thinking about what that shot is. To Reggie.
And again, we can get it towards the end, but ideally this is a movie about dudes rocking. And that is the platonic ideal, is just hanging out with your bros, playing, sitting around at midnight or whatever the song was and drinking Dos Equis.
Yeah.
That's his lady in the radiator.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, life is just getting harder and harder now. And so maybe we can all just aspire to be those three dudes, like rocking out on that hood,
Just, you got to chill, man.
Right.
When Jimmy Buffett says it, it's stupid. When Phantasm says it, hell yeah.
I'm all for it, yes. So Mike's still driving. Tall man appears and takes control of the hearse and tells him,
"This experience may seem strange to you, this evolution, as you prepare for passage."
And then he opens the coffin and dives through it like a portal, which is a fantastic shot just in its own. This is, again, one of those like low budget things that completely works for me. He opens the coffin and red light comes out and he just goes yoink and goes into the coffin.
Yeah, and kind of like the first one, it's something that makes me just appreciate like physical effects and just like, oh my gosh, you made that work. Look at how you got around that. Not just like, here's some CG like tendrils coming up where he disappears in a cloud of smoke and energy or something.
Sure.
It is also during this moment, during this conversation it's either during it or right before it, that is one of my favorite shots of the movie. He's driving in the hearse and he drives by a cop. It sort of tilts and moves into the cop car, and the cop like doesn't move. You think he's going to go. Like you think that, there he's going to speeding. Here comes this altercation or something. No, the cop, whose face is just really shadowed. You like almost like he has no face, like the thing in the back of the hearse. And he just sits there and then it moves on. And it's that real eerie, like, what was that? What's happening now? It kind of puts you on edge.
Sure.
And that was very effective. That really kind of got my giblies up.
Yeah. And at that point, do you want nothing to happen, or do you want the cop to like react somehow? Either way, I mean, the cop does react in a second because he ends up pulling over Reggie. But like, I love that they introduce the cop in that way. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I mean, because it lets you know, like, oh, Reggie's kind of on his tail. But it's more just true. Like, but is that even the same cop? I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, financially, absolutely. It was probably the same cop.
But. It was. Reggie gets pulled over by this cop, and the cop asks him for his license and registration and then disappears after asking for it. And what precedes is the goofiest action sequence that I think that Reggie has been a part of at this point.
Damn close.
Yeah, he finds another cop folded up awkwardly in the trunk of the cop car.
which is great because like he is like his face is all screwed up. His body's like twisted through itself. Yep. No explanation for why that is or what happened or just no, there it is. Isn't that terrifying? Now here's something else.
He gets into an altercation with the cop and he kind of looks like, I don't know, the face mask isn't so hot and he kind of looks like Maniac Cop from like part 3 or something like that, which maybe we'll get to. The best part is that eventually the cop, for no apparent reason whatsoever, ends up on the roof of the cop car. Reggie is trying to get a shotgun unlocked. It can only point up. So, of course, Reggie just ends up like pulling the trigger on the shotgun, shooting through the roof and blowing the cop away.
Yeah, there's like because
Reggie makes no sense.
Yeah, because Reggie gets away from the cop who's like, that makeup is just a mask with some makeup over it. And everyone that worked, or I can say everyone, a lot of people in the behind the scenes stuff were making fun of it really bad. Like, this is what we're reduced to. Like these people, a lot of the crew is, worked on, movies with actual budgets and stuff like that. And like, are you kidding me? I came back for this. Yeah, Reggie gets into the cop car to get away from him, locks the door, gives him the finger, which is funny. But then the cop, instead of just like breaking the window and getting him, climbs on the roof to break the window and get him, basically just so Jody can shoot him, and then just so Don Coscarelli can then pour a bunch of that yellow goop out of the cop's mouth into Reggie's, because he still got that Reggie is Ash thing of I just got to beat the hell out of my lead.
Yeah, he's definitely doing the Sam Raimi Bruce Campbell thing.
Which I wonder if that was a stipulation for Mike as well, where it's like, look, I want Mike to be more active. Do not put goo in my mouth. It's a traditional goo writer.
Yes, you can do it on the back of my head, but not the mouth.
But a funny thing about that goo is that goo was prepared and dumped into Reggie's mouth by Gigi Fast Elk Porter, the special effects makeup coordinator and future Mrs. Reggie Bannister.
Aww.
So what a great meet cute.
They met cute by her pouring goop into his face at 4 a.m. on a low budget horror movie. Yeah. Aww.
Sorry, everyone else's relationship isn't as good as that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is pretty sweet.
The cop is also played by the same stunt person that flipped the pink hearse in part 3. Bob Ivy. Yeah, he's fantastic. And he kept telling Coscarelli, he's in 2 explosions in this film, and he basically had to lobby Don Coscarelli, like, come on, put me in an explosion, set me on fire. Which again, like, what a weird mentality stunt people have. I don't get it. But good for them. I mean, it looks great.
Yeah.
He burned up his feet a little bit, but...
Yeah, because he's wearing when you do a fire stunt, you are covering like a flame retardant thing a lot. And he said that normally in that case, he doesn't wear extra socks or anything like that. But because he was in the cop car, there was accelerant all over the car to help it go up more. And some of that got onto him as well. And so it, yeah, he went up, but he still feet burning, still did the scene. Just a pro, but
yeah, because he knew that they couldn't reset and do it again. So it was just like, well, I have to feel my feet burn for a while to get this shot. Mike wakes up in his car. A whole bunch of this kind of was it all a dream? Was it not? Type of thing.
What's great about Mike's car is Mike's in the back of the hearse, and there's a candelabra back there.
God,
inexplicably. I don't know if they're burying Liberace, but it's just why wouldn't there be?
It's either Liberace's corpses in the back, or Mike is just dedicated goth. He's just I will travel with a candelabra with candles.
I mean, he dresses in all black, so
exactly. Yeah, he's got his little mock turtleneck and everything.
Listening to Coil, just cruising down the highway.
Right. So he heads into the cheapest of cheap locations, i.e., the desert that he can just kind of wander around in for a while. He sees some lurkers lurking in very Jawa-looking shots.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't this before, this is definitely straight out of New Hope. The beginning. Luckily, yes, they have faces this time, so they're not completely covered.
So yeah, you can tell it's legally they're different. They're significantly different enough. It is a beautiful location.
It looks great.
Everything in this movie looks really good. I think the old footage looks fantastic.
Definitely.
And I was really enjoying being out in this thing. It was not pleasant. It was one of the first locations they did, and it was a nightmare.
I believe it.
But like there was like they were promised trailers, but the trailers had to be used to like store equipment. It just no one was happy, and it was awful. It made for some neat scenes.
After he wanders around for a while, he goes back to the car and sits in there and starts writing to like a will and a journal, basically to Reggie. But then there's just one shot where the lurkers just like peer in through the window of the car, and it's just straight out of Hobgoblins.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
it made me laugh so hard, and I don't know if it's just like the size of them, it's just the rubber faces, it's the framing in the window.
I think
it's just a comedic thing, you know?
Yeah, it seems like they're going to be like, oh boy, we got to tell the boss.
Yeah, hey, you guys, we're the Hobgoblins.
It's not spooky or scary. It's just kind of silly.
It's funny.
Particularly for like the tone they're trying to present. They sneak that in there, and it feels a little silly.
Totally.
In that note to Reggie, or in his will, he sort of mentions that he has an idea how to lure him out, how to lure out the tall man.
Which, if you remember, that's what Reggie's all about, because he just wants to like beat the shit out of the tall man. That's his whole plan.
That is his thing. And then he has a dream about he dreams like a Civil War battlefield, and there's dead bodies everywhere. There's a couple of coffins. Roger Avery is one of the people in the coffins, which I think is cool.
That shows another level of dedication, where Roger Avery is just like, yeah, we didn't get to make what we wanted to make, but you know what? I'm going to show up and just hang out with you. I love this so much. I'm going to guess
he did not get paid. Yeah, I think it was like I'll show up. Michael Baldwin had said that was a great scene for Friends, because you just call up all your buddies and be like, hey, you want to be in a movie? And then they're just chorus in a movie, and you can fill it out.
Just like he's probably still on top of the world, can do whatever. And he's just like, no, I need to go show up to be a dead body in Phantasm 4. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hold on, Rules of Attraction, whatever that movie was.
Right.
The scene is inexplicable, but I still really like it. Mike dreams that he is on a operating table in a tent in the Civil War, and the tall man is there, like embalming him. It doesn't make much sense that I don't think they had like embalmers hanging around. I don't know my Civil War history, but it seemed like they kind of just sort of like kicked him into a ditch, and that was it.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's this very creepy thing of the tall man jams the embalming needle up Mike's nose, and it's just like one shot. You see it's a neat little magic trick how it goes all the way up there, but it was unpleasant to watch. And Mike kind of wakes up and is screaming during it.
It completely works, and I don't even like being that guy, but like, the needle is like obviously like collapsible, and that's how the like trick works. And at the very bottom, you can see the joint, and in the last level of collapsing. But it's done so well that I don't care. Yeah. Because I'm right there with them. You know, when they're doing that.
I'm on board with it. And this was also an idea Kristen Deem had for part 3. Kristen Deem, we'll get more into her involvement in sort of the wrap up thing, but she is one of the unsung heroes of this whole project. She's been a stalwart of this thing and working in many different roles behind the scenes and with Angus Scrimm. But this was an idea that she had that initially was Mike was the original alien and like put his alienness into the tall man in this scene. But then Don Coscarelli liked the concept and like reconfigured it, so it was it doesn't like I said, it doesn't really fit, other than that this adds to the overall kind of moving through time and space that this movie does. So maybe it happened, I don't know, maybe I don't know that there is an answer, but it looks neat all the same.
Yeah, they really they did what they could with Civil War reenactment people. And I think what they did was they ended up spending $200 as a donation for for the Civil War reenactment people.
Oh, nice.
That's producing, man.
That is producing.
To get all those people to show up, and it only cost you $200. So Mike wakes up and he sees 2 of the silver gateway poles out in the desert. And that's just an effective shot just on its own, I think. So we get back to Reggie's story, and he's been in a rest stop bathroom for a while, and he sees a very young lady across the street at a payphone. And as soon as this happens, you just go, well, here we go. Yeah, this is the Reggie moment for the film. Yep. So we're doing a whole bunch of cutbacks to very serious stuff happening with Mike, because he's like attempting to hang himself.
Yeah, that's how he's going to get the tall man. And in fact, it's funny, that tree, it did not exist in the desert. They had to drag it all the way out there or transport it. And William Baldwin was a part of that, because that's producing in this low budget thing. He's like, so whenever I see that scene, I just think about what a pain in the ass it was to get that tree out there.
Totally. What are you doing on the movies this weekend? lugging a tree to the desert.
Lugging a tree so we can film me killing myself?
Yeah, right.
What would you rather be doing? Killing myself?
Yeah, right. So we see a bunch of unused footage from part 1 where it was one of their attempts on showing the death of the tall man, where they lasso him basically and hang him, and using the car, which is very Phantasm, drive away, pulling him up into the branches of the tree and wait for him to hang to death.
And they leave, and the initial plot point of the first Phantasm was this happens, and then they go home. Mike wakes up the next day, and it's still dark out because this tall man has stolen the sun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when I don't know how, if this is something that he just intuits like everything else in the first one, when he's talking to the tall man about you're killing the world, he's referring to the tall man having made the sun not come up. But that's
really interesting.
Yeah, but they wisely got rid of that.
Yeah.
And so in the dream, alternate reality, whatever you want to call it, he talks to the tall man about, and this is the same dialogue. And I love this moment because the tall man is hanging there, and he's like,
I'll go away, and I won't ever come back.
You will?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like the look on his face is like, of course. Yeah. Like he can't even believe the kid's buying this. Right. Like, really? Come on. I thought you were smart. He's like, yeah, I'll leave you alone.
Totally.
But Mike cuts him down. And then like he immediately turns around and is like, boy.
Yeah.
But it's a great shot. And I guess when they were filming it, it was super cold, and that's an actual knife, and Mike dropped it a few times.
Oh no.
God. But
yeah, and poor Angus Scrim was just like,
just hanging there.
Up there, hanging.
But yeah, so it was a neat way to bring that back, because then with the tall man getting cut down, then the tall man sort of psychically cuts Mike down from the tree and tells him, he's like, no, you can't take your own life. That's my domain.
Which is just creepy.
Yeah,
in its own right.
Really, while it doesn't fully explain the tall man's motivations, it does deepen the relationship between him and Mike, which I like a lot.
When we see the shot from the old footage of him cutting himself or getting cut down, we flash to Mike falling in the desert under the tree. Does it make sense? I don't know. Doesn't have to, but like it just works for the feeling of the movie. Like I'm on board with all of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is very dreamy, and so it kind of works. And then Mike approaches a gateway, and the tall man tells him, be careful what you're looking for. And Mike runs through the portal and ends up on this palatial estate.
Yes,
it's not quite the house from the first one, the Dunsmuir house or whatever, because they wanted to shoot at the original house, but they went, it's like a 4-hour drive. Yeah, we have to spend a bunch of money, and so just to get one shot, we're not doing it. That's movie magic.
Mike basically walks up on the tall man, and he's just like a kindly old man. Yeah. And he offers him lemonade and wants to hang out with him and stuff like that. You could probably assume that Angus Scrim just wanted to do something different by part 4. Like, the man is an experienced actor, and if all he was going to do is just stand around and say one-liners, I think he wanted to maybe show another dimension to himself. Nice. And show that he can act. And boy, does he. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, this scene's odd because, Mike encounters this guy who looks like the tall man, but is like, no, hey, I'm a nice guy. Have some lemonade. We don't get many of your kind around these parts. And then puts together oh, you've come through the portal. And then that freaks Mike out. And he's about to run away. And then Angus Scrim he's Jebediah Morningside. He introduces himself as such. And he's like, wait, I have so many questions. And he's stopped by the fortune teller lady, who we've already seen. She's had a flash in the car at the beginning of in the hearse that Mike is drawing, but it is a different actress than the one that appears in the first one. But she looks very, very similar, which is impressive. But it's kind of it's a neat scene, but it's also kind of funny because okay, I guess they're stuck on that porch because he's like, wait, don't go. I'm not chasing after you. Yeah, I'm tired. And this is a wild set. It's like this steampunk laboratory, which it looks like a wooden floor. And I guess they just painted a concrete floor. And he's able to he fires up these Tesla ass looking stuff and is able to travel through it. It's after this that we go back to the Reggie side of things. This might be peak Reggie.
Yes,
he's driving down. He's driving the Cuda and he encounters the young woman again. And he pulls up next to her and they're kind of making goo eyes at each other. And then like there's a turtle in the road that she swerves and crashes her car. First of all, basically her reaction is like, hey, who's that reckless driver? He's like, why, if someone pulled up next to you on the highway in the opposite lane, the reverse, like ogling at you, that's creepy as hell.
Yes, but you get the Reggie charisma.
So she crashes and he saves her. She's remarkably cool about it.
Very cool about it. Yeah, and the crash does happen just like all the other crashes in Phantasm, where it does like the Dukes of Hazzard kind of like, like spinning in the air.
Yeah, you gotta flip it.
Yes, cut with Mike wandering the desert, and he starts killing scorpions by dropping rocks on them psychically. So Mike has psychic powers now again.
He's developing telekinesis.
Yeah, he's got the force.
Yeah, he's changing. The Tallman made an earlier reference to his evolution, so I guess that is in play now.
Yeah.
But the sound when it hits the lurker.
Yes. It's so good.
It's like a frozen hot dog covered in Rice Krispies slammed against the table. It's ridiculous. There's this meaty, crunchy. It's wonderful.
Jody shows up and starts chatting with Mike. He used to be in ball form, so now Jody just like creeps people out by like floating up next to them and just like turning into Jody.
Yeah.
He starts seeing Mike starts seeing more gates appearing in the desert, and those shots are effective to me. Like I like watching more gates start appearing, just like more balls start appearing everywhere.
I love spoiler alert. Well, this whole thing is spoiler, but like never explained. Never got into.
Nope.
Never. It's like, we got to stop it before this happens. No, just all these gates are there. Why? Don't know. Are they there for Mike? Are they there to, get more lurkers in there? I don't know. But it's a really cool visual. It's real neat.
And it's fun to think about.
It excites all these different possibilities. And it's done in a way that does that. It isn't just like, wait, what?
Yeah. Reggie pulls up to the seediest, most abandoned-looking hotel that you've ever seen. Just decides that they're going to stay the night there. I don't think that there's a hotel clerk or anything like that.
No, it's pretty abandoned. But he's like, I can't be in the car anymore. I'm exhausted. Let's go in there. But apparently, there's only one usable room. Yes, of course there is.
Of course they have to. And my goodness. It always surprises me how quickly Reggie is ready to just tell this crazy tale. That they're like it. I wonder if Reggie thinks that it makes him sound cool, like that he's like this, like 100%. Dude on the road. Yeah.
He refers to himself as a soldier, when in the reality is he's a guy who's like fucks up a lot and is like managed to survive. But he's like, I'm a soldier.
Yeah,
I'm a no limit soldier.
And so he just explains to every woman that he meets, like, that he's on this mission and hoping
women
that it makes
love to hear that you're on a mission.
Right.
Women love it.
While you're unpacking all your weapons for the night, like, women really want to hear what mission that you've been on for the last 10 years. Of course, he tries to, like, hook up with Jen because, of course, it's only one bed. Reggie lays down next to her, gets a little bit creepy at this point, frankly. Just a little bit of like pawing at her.
The Reggie touch.
Reggie touch, yeah. And her breasts starts moving on their own, which of course Reggie thinks that he can just like look and see what the deal is, I guess. But he does end up saying, far out. Which made me laugh.
Yeah.
How would you describe this?
Yeah, she's got spheres for boobs. They're like embedded in there. And what's funny is this character initially was supposed to be this woman who at the time was Michael Baldwin's wife. She had a brief role in part 3 as the nurse, like receptionist, wearing the headphones.
Oh, yeah.
That Reggie, in classic Reggie form, sees a woman wearing headphones and is like, hey, I would like to talk to you right now.
Right. Reggie's really good on public transportation, I'm sure.
Yeah. And in fact, that's why the character was named Jennifer. That was the name of his wife. But this is from Michael Baldwin. Truthfully, though, I did not want her to do this scene. I was in love with and married to a woman who was utterly adorable, and I just did not want to see her breasts explode with silver spheres. Now, I'm going to pretend that he said that line in straight-faced as possible.
Yeah.
In fact, in my mind, he's Werner Herzog when he says that. But
goodness, yeah. I mean, Is that him being a great actor, or a great producer, great husband?
Yeah.
Or,
Well,
or
I think
maybe overstepping his bounds because maybe she wanted to do that.
she was not that thrilled about it. She was not.
Gotcha. Okay.
She was like, I don't know. And so he was like, yeah, let's not. But the sphere boobs actually originated in Roger Avery's script. That's where that started, which kind of makes sense. But
Sure.
So that's a weird thing. Before that, he has this neat little dream where he's like in this like corn and he's looking for Mike, and Mike shows up as the tall man. He's wearing the suit or whatever, and he's all like gaunt, and his hair's all slicked back. But yeah, so this a fight against the spheres happens, and Reggie gets jacked up. Like one of the spheres comes at him, and he catches it, drills through his hand, and then he ends up like hitting one with a hammer. He uses a tuning fork. Yes. Which I was very excited to see the tuning fork come back.
And the people that did the special effects in this scene, Robert Kurtzman from K&B, they're basically the best you can get in the business right now as far as, horror effects and that kind of stuff. They knew that Coscarelli had no money. And they just said, you know what, we'll show up and we'll do a couple of set pieces for you if we can just have a silver ball. Oh, so nice. Their payment was just getting a Phantasm sphere because they were such fans.
That's cool.
So again, I don't ever want to discount like the lovability of Don Coscarelli at this point, because if he can get like K&B to just come down and do free effects, he must be a pretty rad guy,
Yeah, there's something to it. Because this movie has, not just its fan base, but the people working on it has just inspired this intense love. And I think that's really cool. For how rough as this production sounded, by people were still like, they were in it.
People wanted to hang out with Don and Reggie.
Yeah. And I think that's why you saw that scene of Reggie and Michael and Jody hanging out. But then he also listened to the fans. And by fans, I mean me, when they said more tuning forks. They heard that reverberate throughout history because we see a lot more tuning forks in this, and tuning forks rule. So I'm excited to see them come back into play.
Mike now wants to go back in time and stop the tall man from existing. Classic. If I take him out in the past, we'll be all fine now. Those stories don't really work for me. I just find them that's just a personal taste thing. Like the whole go back, solve this in time travel. I'm not into it.
I generally don't like time travel movies, specifically ones that are like, what do they call that? A bootstrap paradox, where it's like, well, it never would have happened unless you didn't go back in time in the first place. Hate that stuff. Looking at you, Interstellar.
You can imagine my fury during the last couple hours of Twin Peaks: The Return too. That's a whole other thing. But
and then you get this neat moment also in Mike's, as Mike then goes through the portal, of he is alone on Wilshire Boulevard in LA.
Yes.
And apparently this is again another indie film thing that I love. They got there super early in the morning on Thanksgiving because they knew no one was going to be out. Yeah. And they just shot the tall man walking down the street. And at one point, a cop drove by. The tall man, Angus, just were oh, look at these flowers. I'll just go over here,
Oh,
and
God.
He was just a guy walking down the street. And so they got away with it. But it's be how did you shut it down? There may have been a couple of people that were sort of corking and hey, watch, but you didn't have to do much because no one was there. It was Thanksgiving early morning.
Yeah, 6 a.m.
Which is funny because Michael Baldwin talks about them gearing up to shoot and the tall man or Angus showing up at his door at 4 a.m. He's like, that's not a sight anyone wants to see at 4 a.m. as you've looked at the people and there's Angus. But of course, he's a super sweet guy. And so,
of course he is. Yeah.
But this is a point where Jody catches him and is like, we got to get out of here. You might get infected, which is a little nod to just in case that the bag flu or whatever it was that was called in Avery's thing happened. They can still go to that. So there's some weird alternate future or something. Meanwhile, in this current dimension, Reggie sees the hearse, Mike's hearse in the distance. He's found him in Death Valley or it's Funeral Hills or something. It's all right, and goes to the back of the CUDA and gets geared up, including two of my favorite things in this is he's loading up the 4-barrel shotgun, and he just Three Stooges those shells in there. He just pokes them in the eye poke.
Yes.
But he puts on the ice cream uniform.
I love it.
No reason, but goddamn it, I was so happy to see it. Yeah.
Yes.
He's this is the final stand. I'm going out the way I came in,
Yep.
Ice cream man.
Did he wear the ice cream outfit in part 2 and 3? I can't remember.
Part two and part 3, he was rugged Reggie. He was He was puffy
boogie
vests
down.
and flannel shirts, boogie down hats.
Yeah.
This is no, return to form.
Ah, man, that makes it even better.
Well, I mean, like, there's a lot of echoing that kind of happens between the first one and this one that I like a lot.
There you go. That's another one.
Mike sees Reggie, and Reggie's like, "Oh my god, the band's back together. All three boys." Yep. And Mike goes to hug Reggie and is like,
"Don't trust him, Reggie."
And then Reggie palms him the ultimate weapon.
Yes.
The tuning fork.
We did skip over an action sequence of Reggie shooting lurkers, I think.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And it's only of note because they do he blasts some people away and then it's silent and then he thinks he's done. And then one more come out after him and then one more comes out after him. And it's just like we're going to run this joke into the ground where like one more lurker comes after Reggie, and it's super well done.
And one of those lurkers is 10-year-old Chloe Coscarelli, Don Coscarelli's daughter.
Yep.
She stood in as the dwarf that attacks Reggie. Also, what we haven't mentioned that in the interim of his interstellar or interdimensional travels, Mike has been doing something to the CUDA, messing with the engine and starting to construct his own like batteries not included style sphere, this like homemade version of the real thing.
Yeah. So Jody gives us the history of the tall man at this point. You know, this is the first time we see him turning on the machine. He was an undertaker.
It's all told very broad and not very specific about like, well, he was into embalming and like he wanted to know more about death. And then he figured out these gates. And so he does it. And I was trying to think, it feels like there's a bunch of comic books. Like this seems like a comic book trope of like, scientist does an experiment that goes wrong, but specifically scientist does an experiment that goes wrong and he's like taken over by something. But really all I could think of was Emilio Lizardo in Buckaroo Banzai becomes John Warfin. But I'm like, no, it's gotta be more to that. Nope. It's just, from what I can understand, if anyone has any other ideas of this happening, of just because Jebediah Morningside goes through the gates and he comes back out the tall man. But like from what we've seen, the tall man sort of being disposable, getting killed a whole bunch, you know, that raises a whole bunch of other questions. Like, was just this a template that they go like, oh, that's what you look like? Okay, well, we'll just send through people to look like that.
Sure.
Is it this like, did he fuse with them? You know, whatever's back there, and you know, or did something happen over there that you know changed his mind? He's like, oh, I'm all powerful now, and
totally,
and I can make clones of myself. You know, I don't know, but it's never fully explained, and I like that. And then Mike before Jebediah goes in, Mike tries to stab him, and Jody's like, no, you can't. We're in a different dimension. Like we're not actually here. You can't do anything. But when the tall man comes through, he kind of starts to sense them, which I always like the tall man's like interdimensional sight or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. For a movie that tries to give backstory to the tall man, I'm so glad that they stop where they do, because there could be like a lifetime of weird shit that goes on when he steps through the portal and when he comes back, and we don't know. And I'm okay with that. Like, in fact, I much prefer that. Like, I don't want to know if he made a deal with some entity in another dimension or some stupid stuff like that.
Well, because when you start to get into specifics, it's dumb. Because like he comes back in the 1800s and just very slowly has he been at Morningside Mortuary in the first one the whole time? Like, you know, obviously not because he was in the Civil War, or was he? Like there, it just starts becoming all these holes. But if you keep it very dreamy and vague, then you can get away with it. And I think it kind of works. Yeah. Mike absconds through another gate. Jody follows. They're in a cemetery. This time, Mike attacks Jody.
Just had to be sure. Before I killed my own brother.
It's revealed that Jody's been working for the tall man, which does not make any sense because. His thing, like, why would he try to get Reggie there? What anything in part 3? Like, it doesn't, unless you want to argue that there were parts of Mike could escape his control a little bit, or you know, stabs Jody, is running away, and another Jody shows up and starts choking him, which I thought was very creepy.
Super well done. Yeah,
he takes him to mortuary. I think it's one of the previous ones they've been to, like the Bolton one or whatever, and they have him on a slab, and the tall man's going to cut his head open with a buzzsaw clip sphere. And there was a huge fight between Angus and Don Coscarelli about whether or not the tall man should say, like, this may hurt a bit.
Yeah.
Well, or this won't hurt at all. Well, maybe a little bit. The Angus was like, I'm not doing it. The tall man doesn't do one-liners like that. Like, it's not.
It's his first one-liner.
And this is always, I think, the best approach to this is Don Coscarelli was like, let's do it both ways.
Yep.
And then we'll see which one works. And Don Coscarelli decided his one works better. Although I tend to lean towards Angus Scrim because I don't really,
I don't
again
think
for the tone of the whole thing. It's just like it's an off joke.
I giggled when he said it, but then looking back on it, I wish he didn't say it because the tall man does not do one-liners at all. He's way too creepy for that.
So he's cutting into Mike's skull, and Mike pulls out the tuning fork. He's able to get the tuning fork and rings it, which causes everyone to pause. Takes the sphere, murders Jody. And I thought this is when the movie really starts getting me, because I thought this was like oddly sweet, even though it's also incredibly alienating, is that Jody, like, as he's dying, is like,
I died. I died in the car wreck.
like telling Mike, like, this was never me. Like, I was always in control. I never wanted to hurt you. Mm-hmm. But also just being like, yeah, guess what? That you thought I was back? No, I've been dead. Like, this was never, all that stuff you felt was wrong, and it's very alienating.
I don't understand their plan.
So their plan is so Phantasm. It's very much more like Phantasm 2 and 3, because Phantasm 2 and 3 are like, if you've ever seen those Ghanaian film posters that are like drawn by someone, and it's to get butts in seats, so they'll just kind of do whatever. Like, whereas a famous one, it's like it's Jerry Maguire, and it's Jerry Maguire holding like two Uzis, and there's a severed head and whatever. That's Phantasm 2 and 3. It's just this very ridiculous, over the top, thing.
Sure.
And this felt like it, because their plan is to they finally get the tall man to come through chasing after Mike. Then the tall man comes through, and Mike tries to use his psychic powers to use the sphere that was sitting in like the engine of the Huda to fly at the tall man, stab him, and it does. And the tall man just is like, "This is a toy, get rid of it." But then something underneath it in the engine starts like glowing and shaking, and it's a bomb, I guess, and they blow up the tall man.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I guess try everything, because you've killed the tall man multiple times. You've never seen how he comes back. Only the audience has seen that.
Sure.
But sure enough, another tall man comes through the gate.
Yeah.
He gets Mike and like pulls the sphere, just like throws him out and pulls the sphere, this gold sphere, out of his skull, and then just kind of like gives one last look and then disappears for the gate. Mike is just convulsing on the ground.
Mike, you're still alive. I'm dying, Reg.
Reggie's like, "No, man, no, it's going to be fine." And like, then goes through the portal. And this is amazing. Like, this sold me on this entire movie. It's just incredibly haunting. It flashes back to this unused footage. It goes like zooms into Mike's eye. It's young Mike from the first movie. He's walking down the street, and he hears a voice. He hears like Reggie being like, "You're alive. You're alive." And, the wind starts to pick up. Reggie pulls up in his ice cream truck. Mike gets in the truck, and they're driving. And then you hear Mike in the now's voice being like, I'm dying, Reggie." And Reggie starts looking around going, "You hear something?"
Yeah.
And young Mike's like, "No, it's just the wind. It's just the wind." And they use one of my favorite shots in the first one, the ice cream truck just driving away into darkness. Boom, on end credits.
Yeah.
It's such a creepy ending, and I'm left with so many questions that I want to have. Like,
sure.
So is Mike dying? Did Mike like escape into a different dimension? Does he know that he's escaped another dimension? And so he can hear that and be like, "No, it's fine. I'm still here." Did he go back in time somehow? Like, there's just a lot of questions, but it's very, very haunting.
And just what a constructive use of old footage too. Like, that you can land that emotional punch using footage that you've had sitting around for 40 years almost, or 30 years. Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's really like this movie is really comes back to the core of what, to me, Phantasm's about. It was just like fear of death and dealing with death. Now, horror movies in general are about that to varying degrees, but this one is explicitly so. And I think, like, by going back to this whole more dreamlike, like Mike trying to deal with death, either like the death of his family or his own death, because Tall Man tells him, like, that's your evolution. And according to some religion, schools of thought, whatever, that death is just ascending to the next state. It's just, it's another change. And so it's some of that too. And that he's with Reggie driving off into the darkness, but it's like the end of the Truman Show when he opens the door and enters the door. It's dark back there. Like, is it good or is it bad what's happening right now?
Yeah,
it's still hopeful because he's with his buddy Reggie, but it's still like eerie and ominous.
But we're seeing an earlier time, and is this do they still have all their adventures ahead of them at this point? maybe.
Yeah. Is it some weird like time travel thing that now he's equipped with the knowledge and,
Right.
Like I won't give spoilers for the Dark Tower books, but because this got me thinking about Reggie's role in all this. And that like Reggie is this sort of more like positive life force, because Reggie's all about like banging, right?
Hedonism,
and like he's all for like having sex and that, but he never gets to. The movie stops him at every turn.
Yeah.
And it gets him into trouble. So this movie is a bit like it was written by Zardoz, where the gun is good, but the penis is evil. Like,
there you go.
Yeah, shooting stuff and staying alive. The ideal thing is to hang out with your boys.
Yep.
That's the best you could possibly do. Like, be afraid of death, but don't create new life, because that's a trouble. Just hang out with your boys.
Yeah.
It's waste away in Margaritaville. It's fine. Like,
that's the ultimate ascension. And God, I've mentioned it once before earlier in this podcast, but as life gets harder, like having beers with your buds is about as good as it gets right now.
Yeah.
And like,
it's just
cherish those moments completely.
Just hang out with your dudes, because that's they will be there for you. Dudes rock.
Yes. Yeah.
This is kind of like, I don't know. It's like a parrot head horror movie. It's just relax and kick back with some Dos Equis, bruh.
Your new ascension, your new level of consciousness is just you and your two best friends with some beers, and that's pretty okay with me.
Yeah,
like,
because it's also, what did he take from Mike? Was Mike supposed to be was he sort of like trying to breed Mike to being a new tall man? And he's like, well, this isn't working. I'm just going to take my sphere and get out of here.
Yeah.
Or, was that the plan all along? Is this part of it? Because I was also sort of waiting when he pulled the sphere out of Mike's head. It's like, Mike, you're alive. And be like,
Yep. Back to simple Mike.
Yeah. I want to go buy some Ed Hardy shirts now. No, snap out of it. But yeah, it's just, it was for the last two movies being as goofy as they were, to end with that like sort of haunting feeling that I got from the first one, I was totally unexpected.
Yes.
I was not expecting that at all. And so it made me really like this one. I think this one is borderline incomprehensible. I mean, like it probably didn't make sense to hear us talk about it. I don't think so, but
I agree.
It's still like, it's all, I think you said it before, it's all vibes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of like the first one. If you're willing to get on its wavelength, it's pretty cool. And
more than the sum of its parts, as I would say. Like, it adds up to more.
But I think it really only works if you've seen the other ones. Like, you can't just go into this cold and be like, no, it's good. I mean, you may still get something out of it. I don't know. But I think I think part of my real enjoyment of it came from the hurting of like part 3 in particular. I was like experiencing that and then like getting it again, like that being withheld, that dreamy feeling I got from the first one.
Yep.
And I'm surprised at how much I really liked this.
That's great. Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, it's kind of ideal from this. I was not expecting it to be like the last episode of Evangelion, where it's like the plot stops and like Mike is like, I wonder if I can have friends. Yeah, you can. Yay. But yeah, it is this internal journey for Mike. And that was not for a movie where a woman's boobs turn into spheres.
Yes. Yeah.
But sure. Who would have expected?
That's the, Reggie is the Reggie portion of this film is carrying the torch of parts 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And Mike is carrying, like, his road trip is 1 and 4, basically. So we get the dreamy and the dark, and then we get the funny and the violent with Reggie,
Yeah.
And I want that in a Phantasm film because it's all those things.
Yeah.
So I feel like a Phantasm film would be remiss if it didn't have the goofy humor and the funny Reggie and all that kind of stuff too. I
think it's judiciously done. I don't love all the jokes, but I think by mainly confining it to Reggie is great. There was when Reggie kills the cop, and it explodes the cop. There's one take where he was supposed to say like, "That's for Rodney," as in Rodney King, and I am so glad they didn't use that.
Oh God, really?
Yeah. Like, oh, Reggie, no, honey. Yeah.
That's a two hands over the face reaction right there. Wow. Gosh. Yeah, guys.
That's kind of like I would have voted for Obama in a third term. Like, what have you done for black rights? Well, I exploded a demon cop.
Exactly.
Thanks, man.
God. All right. Well, for as dreamy as this movie is, didn't have the highest body count, which is fine. But we still honor our dead here. So let's do that real quick. Cop. Twisted up and stuffed in the car trunk. Demon Cop. Played by Bob Ivy. Shot by Reggie. Burned to death in car explosion. And Jennifer. Played by Heidi Marnhout. Head smashed by Reggie with a sledgehammer. And we're back.
I like that introduction. We honor the dead, so let's get that over with.
Yeah. Let's honor the dead as fast as possible.
Let's come on.
Yeah. So, yes, part 4, better than I remembered it.
Yeah.
A lot better than I remembered it, to be honest.
I'm really not looking forward to part 5.
Ooh, dude.
Because this is the last Coscarelli.
Yes, he did not direct part 5, Ravager. That's coming up next. And that's it. So we have one more in Phantasm, and then we'll probably do a wrap-up episode because that seems right. And then we'll move on to a new franchise.
Yeah, if you have any suggestions, something you'd like to hear us do, feel free to reach out. Let us know. We are all ears.
Yeah, we are on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit, and we are on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. That's what I checked probably the most often. But if you have thoughts about what franchise that we should cover next, definitely let us know. Also, we've started receiving a little bit of listener art, which is warms my heart a little bit.
It's great.
Yeah,
thank you so much
to Stephen Wiles from Ohio, who did a mock-up of Horn Dog Reg, which I posted on our internet on our Instagram, which made me happy.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, reach out and let us know what you think of the films as you're going along, and we're going to continue on with part 5 next week. And then, a whole new franchise.
I am open to any and all further discussion of Phantasm 4.
Yeah.
Because my partner did not watch it. And so I have no one to talk to about him. And we just did. And I want to bother more people about it.
Yes.
But I don't know. This one really got me.
Who knew? Who knew?
Unexpected.
I mean, to me, this is a great example of why this podcast exists. Of first one's great. 2 and 3 have their merits. 4 comes out of nowhere and hits you on a cool level.
Unexpected for what part 2 and part 3 are. Yeah. And then it comes back to what I love about the first one, full swing.
Yeah.
Do they turn the V into the V for Ravager?
Of course they do.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Of course they do. Yeah. Yeah. All right. See you next week for Ravager.
So long.
All right. Bye-bye. This has been a Two Penguins media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.